fundraisers. Do you have a different approach to different fundraisers?
I do a lot of Labour Party fundraisers, and obviously as the election gets nearer, I suppose I'm doing more. I'm doing 3 this week, and they can be very, very same old, same old. There's a raffle, there's an auction, tends to be quite old audience sometimes, although I think it's been picking up a bit as the election gets nearer. So tonight should be a bit different and a bit more fun, because this all came about through Facebook actually. Val Morris Cook, Carl, the local candidate's wife, she's friendly with Mark Wright, who's this Elvis impersonator. We sort of linked up on Facebook, and then before I knew it, I was agreeing with Mark that we should do a night together. What did we say? King of pop, King of rock meets the King of spin, and so yeah, it'll be. And something like tonight, I'll probably just stand up and talk, and then do a few questions and mix it up with Mark singing, Elvis rather.
When you mentioned Facebook, if you were still director of communications, would spinning or directing or controlling be much harder now with things like, you can see at David Cameron's speech to speak to Kevin Maguire after, but also got Ian Dale there and other bloggers. Would it be a different job for you?
Yes and no. I mean, I think I see it as a positive. I think social networking is changing a lot about the way that people consume politics and interact with the media. I think there's been a big change over the last few years. The 24-hour news, the advent of the web, newspapers becoming very worried about their future. In my view, taking the wrong road in terms of becoming much more negative, not just about politics, but pretty much about everything. And I think that what's happened is that social networking, particularly Facebook and Twitter, are allowing people to build their own media consumption, their own media landscape, but also to build these networks. And I think there's a lot we can learn from what the Americans did on that. I think that people talk about the impact that Obama's campaign in relation to the internet used for fundraising, but actually for me the big thing was the way they built these networks, and they turned supporters into activists and people who then felt empowered and liberated to go out and campaign properly on their own. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I'll talk about tonight actually, is how that can change the way that politics is conducted, and also in relation to things like, when these TV debates happen. First time, going to be, probably get pretty big viewing figures, particularly for as it's the first time. I think that the responses that will count and that will shape the judgment as to who's done well and who's done less well won't be the papers, it won't be the pundits, it'll be people on Twitter and Facebook communicating to each other. And I've noticed that on big events where now you can get that sense of what people are thinking very, very quickly through social networking sites.
And again, reflecting on the election, are you, even this weekend, only a 2% lead for the Tories? Are you surprised by that?
No, I'm not really, because I've been saying, Mark, aka Elvis, he's a regular commenter on my blog and my website, and I've been saying for a long time that David Cameron, yes, he's a better presenter and a better communicator than Michael Howard and Ian Duncan Smith, which would not be terribly hard. But I've always felt he's relying entirely on his presentational communication skills and not on doing the really big, heavy strategic and policy heavy lifting that we certainly did in opposition. And I remember at the Labour Party conference this year, Peter Mandelson said about the Tories that they think they're kind of aping what we did, but they've read the executive summary, they haven't read the book. And that's absolutely right. I mean, on the surface, they're doing what we did in terms of modernisation, but it's not real. There's nothing concrete you can sort of say, well, that's real change that's happened. And I think, the Ashcroft thing yesterday was further sign that they haven't really changed, and the arrogance of the whole lot of them feeling they could kind of just keep stum about that for as long as they have. And also, I think some of the policy decisions they've made are just crazy. I think this inheritance tax thing, where 3,000 of the richest estates in the country get a massive, great tax cut, and that's their first tax priority. I mean, I just can't really, genuinely, I'm confused and baffled as to why they're sticking to that. And likewise, the thing he keeps blathering on about taxing the marriage system and so forth, it's very kind of old-fashioned, backward-looking stuff that I think will say to people, these Tories say that they've changed, but have they really? Whereas with Tony, when Tony was kind of leading New Labour, nobody was in any doubt that we were changing, and there were some really big, tough battles that had to be fought and won to make that clear. All good?